Come on by and have a bite at the Crossroad Diner, the place your spirit goes when it's time to think about a new direction. I'm Bob Darling, and today I'm in the diner with your host, Steve McCurdy.
Welcome back to the Crossroad Diner. You have been listening to the introduction by my good friend, Bob Darling, who's a wonderful voiceover talent and a good friend of mine for the last, how long have we been doing this, Bob? 3 years? 5?
Yeah, I think it's probably closer to 5.
I think it's closer to 5 years. We were in a coaching session together with another great voiceover talent, Domingo Castillo, and we got to be very good friends. And so when I started doing the podcast, he was one of the first people I wanted to call. So, Bob, welcome to the Crossroad Diner.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Yeah.
Good. We're talking, in the diner here, we talk about choice points, places in our life where we were going in one direction, and for whatever reason, we changed direction. So tell us a little bit about when you were growing up, what did you think you wanted to do? What did your family tell you were going to do? How did that take shape for you?
Well, I always liked technology and electronics. So I was always fiddling around with some kind of circuit doing something. And so my parents decided that I should become an engineer.
Okay.
And I should go to college and choose some engineering curricula and just make that my career as an engineer.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So what happened then?
So I did. I was accepted in a northeastern engineering college up in northern New York on the Canadian border, and started out as an electrical engineer, 2 years. The Vietnam War came along at the same time, or was peaking around the same time that I was deciding that I'd about had it with snow and ice and 30 below zero, and I really was thinking that maybe electrical engineering wasn't really what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And so I quit, and of course, our country was ready to take me in their warm arms. And so anyway, I signed up, went in the Air Force for 4 years. And during that time, I decided that I was an enlisted guy, and it was good work, and it was electronics based, and I liked it, but I realized that that wasn't for me either, and I really didn't want what I thought of as a blue collar job,
right,
which is what I thought of as I thought the Air Force assignment was kind of that. So I sat under a palm tree and in Fiji, of all places. And believe it or not, that was the last Air Force assignment I had, and that's about all I can tell you about it. But anyway, and I wrote back to the college and I said, "Would you take me back? But I want to get into this other program that combines engineering and marketing and management." And they said, "Yeah, okay, you're in." And so I went back, graduated, and went to work for General Electric, who had created this program at that school as what in those days they called a sales engineer. And the reason they created that was they said, well, our engineers are really smart, but they can't talk to anybody. And our salespeople can talk to anybody, but they don't know what they're talking about half the time. So they created this, kind of combined degree. So it was a guaranteed job. Went to work for them in their marketing group for 2.5 years. And then I was attracted away by a management consulting firm. So
let me interrupt you for a second. So when you went back into school, you kind of glossed over that. Like, I went to school, graduated, did this. Tell me about the classes, the process, the sense of whether or not you were in the right place, that sort of thing.
Well, I liked it a lot more, and certainly some of it had to do with, as my mother put it, a maturation step.
Right.
But I really enjoyed the different kinds of studies that I was being exposed to, business law, psychology, including developmental psychology, every accounting, along with engineering subjects, math, and some additional science. So it was. I liked the mix.
You were engaged. It engaged your mind.
Yeah, it was so varied that it was challenging and it was fun.
Yeah.
So I felt like, okay, this is going in the right direction.
And then you did that for a couple of years, but what was it that attracted you away, since that seemed like a fairly decent fit?
When you attracted me away from GE, or
right?
Yeah.
You were about to take us into the next step, and I backed us up into college there. But
okay,
let's leap forward to what caused that to change.
This could be a really long story here, so just cut me off if it goes too long. But so I went to work for GE, and they moved me from their headquarters in New York to Tucson, Arizona, and I met my future wife there. And together, after I had been there for 2.5 years, they said, "Well, we have another assignment in Salt Lake City, and we'd like you to take that assignment." Then I said, "Oh, okay." So I flew up here and looked the place over and thought, "Yeah, this is a great place." Okay. So I came to work here in Salt Lake City, had a good success in their sales position. And meanwhile, I had a hobby of keeping saltwater fish. And my wife decided that, together we did over dinner one night, that maybe because the people in Salt Lake, the businesses didn't seem to really know how to raise saltwater fish. So we started our own business, and she took it over. And so we built custom aquaria and so on. Anyway, so we were invited to this guy's home, he and his wife, very well off, and they said, "Can you help us with this? We've got this problem with our saltwater aquarium." So I went over and we spent the evening there, and afterwards he called me back and he said, "I want you to come over and talk to me." And so I did, and he says, "Tell me all about your education, yada yada yada." And he said, "I'd like you to take some exams, but I think we want to hire you as a consultant." So I went through that process, and then he hired me, or they hired me, and I went to work for them for about 4 years. And we.
So what was the attraction? You were kind of happy with where you were. What drew you?
It was really twofold. It looked very exciting. I like the idea of working with companies to help them solve bigger problems than just selling them something.
Okay.
And travel was involved, which of course looked sexy and exciting, at the time, for a short time. And it paid a lot more. And so that was clearly an incentive. So I took it. We did that. Did some really funky and fun assignments. One of them was in Caracas, Venezuela, helping a company move from an old wooden rundown warehouse to a brand new distribution center up in the mountains above Caracas, which was a real challenge since I don't speak Spanish. But anyway, that was fun. And but we did a lot of projects. It was a blast. But like a lot of people who get into a job where travel is a big part of it, I was growing weary of the travel. And my wife and I were talking about having a family, raising children, and that was too much travel. I would go away for a couple of weeks and come back on the weekend, and then maybe be there for a week and then go off again. And so it was too much travel. So the next step was I knew a fellow here in Salt Lake who worked for a phone company, and he said, "We need some help with this and this. And all right, could you be interested in coming to work for us?" And so I did for about a year and a half, and it was fun as operations manager. And then Another company here in Salt Lake that I'd done their distribution center for, I'd done the design work and so on. They reached out to me and said, we want you to come to work for us as an operations manager. And it was more money, and it was a music business. They distributed, in those days, LPs and cassettes, and, I'm dating myself severely here. But, and they were getting into the book distribution business, which also looked interesting. And so I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. So I did that. They were bought out by another company who, both the general manager and I, and we'd become friends. We didn't really think too much of how they like to do business. So we said, no, I don't think we're going to stay on with you. So I went back to consulting, and but only briefly and locally. So no more travel. Yeah.
So let me just interrupt the flow for a minute here, because you're making these decisions. They're being prompted in some cases by you wanting to change things, and in some cases by circumstances changing and making the deal you'd agreed to no longer attractive. So how did you make those decisions? What's the important thing that you're looking for in an opportunity?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. My lifetime best friend, who was my college roommate in the first 2 years, we were real goof offs in those 2 years. We had a lot of fun. But we would kid about, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? Mm-hmm. And we'd both agreed that either rock star or starship captain would be our choice. But what it came down to, and we would joke about that, he would say, well, I think we ought to be real estate investment counselors, and that was a big joke, because we didn't know anything about that. But he said to me, he says, well, why do you want a career? And I said, well, I don't know. Doesn't everybody do that? And he said, well, no. He said, I think, wouldn't it be fun if you just kept doing different things? Don't do one thing your whole life. And I said, that sounds really good. I'm going to keep that in mind, as I go through life. Interestingly, he really didn't do that. He did kind of what you suggested early on, and that is start out with one thing and then shift to another, but then that's it.
Right.
My wife says that I've always been fearless, because I just look at things as just fun, the next adventure, right?
Right.
So I've not had a lot of fear in business or in terms of any. So I've never thought of anything I've done as a career. Anything. Okay. That's kind of my dad worked for AT&T for 35 years and retired, and I thought I don't want to do that.
Right.
It was an unhappy thing for him. He didn't mind the job, but he was a really bright guy, had several degrees, and it just didn't. It looked like the wrong thing to lead a happy life. So yeah, I didn't want to do that. So. Shall I pick up on the thread or?
Well, yeah, you can. I think we've gotten some gist there.
Enough.
What I want to do is now. Have you had people in your life, kids, other young people, that you've had to be consigliere to and kind of watch them come up and make these kind of choices? What's the kind of advice that you give when a person is trying to pick a direction?
We've raised two daughters.
Okay.
And they're both married now, and we have a granddaughter and one on the way. And one of the girls is a very creative, has real art talent. She paints amazingly well. And our other daughter, I think is a very business-minded, entrepreneurial kind of personality. So the advice that I've tried to give them, although I have always said that advice is worth every penny you pay for it, free advice. But the advice I've tried to give them is don't let fear rule your decisions first and
Right.
foremost, right? Because that's what destroys most dreams, I think. So try to be fearless. And secondly, if something resonates with you, go there. Don't question it. Just do it. And it probably won't work out in the beginning, and you'll stumble a lot, and it may cost you some things, money, and maybe friends along the way. But that's okay. If you can do it with a partner, as in a lifetime partner, a wife or whatever, that's way better, because that support system is I think key to
Right.
any success.
Excellent
So
point.
those are my suggestions to our two girls.
That's super. Well, since we've got some restrictions on time here, and I want to get elements of the story that I find interesting, that you went from all of that to a voiceover guy.
Yeah,
Now that's a leap. That's a strange. What was the last thing you were doing before you did that?
Sure. So at one point, and I had started a small a two-man to begin with, computer network sales service consulting business, and it grew and grew and grew, and I had that for 20 years, and it was real fun because it combined technology and people, and I really liked that, and so I did that for about 20 years, and then sold the business or merged it with another company. Stayed on for a year, and then left. But my wife, who also worked for the company, stayed on longer. And the new company had a company meeting in Las Vegas. And for the first time ever, I was the spouse. I was not the president. I was not anybody important. Nobody talked to me, or few people did. Anyway, so I was one morning. I didn't have anything to do, so I was down in the coffee shop. And there was music on and over their PA system, and then a guy came on, and he was talking about whatever's going on in the hotel and so on. And I thought, it just came to me. I thought, I bet I could do that. And I thought back to when I was in college, the first 2 years. This friend of mine and we were DJs on the college radio station,
right?
And people have told me that. And I take this totally with a grain of salt, that I have a good voice.
Sure.
And I thought, well, yeah, there's got to be more to it than that. But anyway, I dove in, and I did what I often do with business, and that is I had some money set aside. So I said, okay, well, let's not just play around with this. Let's start out with very little expense, but pretty quickly, if it looks like this is doable, let's just invest. Let's just buy good equipment. Let's get good coaching, a good demo via Bill DeWeese, by the way, whose demo I still use after 5 years and still get business from. Got some newer ones, but anyway.
Let me tell the audience what you're talking about there. We also share a coach in Bill DeWeese. Bill DeWeese is a voiceover guy who you've probably heard everywhere and have no idea who he is. That's one of the interesting things about voiceover work. Is that you can hear that person and never see them or hear their name. But he would teach this business, this voiceover business. And we took his course. And one of the other things that he offers is to help you craft your demo audio. And so that when people are going to hire you, they listen to it, and it's got several different samples of the kinds of things that you could do. And they go, yeah, I think this guy could do it. So they hire you. And invariably in this business, which is normally kind of actors and folks who've come up through that way, not through business like Bob, they change that demo every 5 minutes because they want that freshness. They want the difference. Bob and I squeeze a nickel till it looks like a penny. And so you're still using that same demo tape and still earning money and getting gigs from it.
Yes, yeah. I have newer ones, and it depends on the media or the method that I'm putting this out there. But you'll still see it on my website, or you'll still hear it, I should say. That was back before anybody was doing video
Right.
type of demos, still there. And yeah, I still use it, and I still get every week. I still get business off of one or more of those samples in that demo. So
So
yeah,
you decided to go into it. You decided to invest in and kind of learn the business instead of by trial and error, have somebody kind of walk you through the
yeah,
ropes and learn what the actual truth is.
right,
Tell me how that's been going, because like you say, you and I have been talking to each other for at least 5 years about
yeah,
this
yeah.
and working on it. How much before that did you get started?
Not too long. Maybe a year.
Okay.
Well, I guess it would be about 7 years total now. So maybe 2 years before that. Yeah.
Right.
So I love it.
Yeah.
I don't, you say, well, did you go from something that maybe you shouldn't have done or you didn't love as much to something you really love? I've really loved all the steps along the way. But I would have to say that, I really, really enjoy doing this.
Right.
This is whenever I get into what I call the bat cave here. Whenever I'm in here, reading new scripts, getting into new stories, it's just, it just lights me up. I just love it. So,
I have found also that working with voiceover clients is a lot more personal and a lot more fun, because they've got a lot of emotional, creative investment in what you're doing and in the
absolutely.
outcome. And so it becomes very, very collaborative in a very positive way.
I agree. They are the people that I have met in this industry have to be the nicest people I've ever worked with, and so and I include other voiceover people like yourself, but the clients, with very rare exception, they are just interesting and really nice, sweet people. I mean, they're just wonderful to work with. So yeah, well,
By
who could ask
nature
for
of the
more?
by nature of the job, they're storyteller people, and
Yes.
storyteller people are going to be engaged in life things, not just how many Cheetos can you sell. So
Right.
talk to them about your bat cave there. Explain what you built and how that works.
I have a really good friend whose son is an audio engineer, and this friend of mine can build anything. And so I said, well, let me do some research into what a booth should be, because yes, it's about the microphone, but it's more about the space. Now, how quiet is it, and echo free and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I and he and his son came up with the design of this call it a room or a whatever. It's about 5 feet by 7 feet, and you can't really tell from what you can see, but there are panels that we built all around on the walls, and then there are things that absorb different kinds of frequencies, and so it's a pretty quiet place, which it needs to be. And then I've got studio monitors in here, and I use a Mac Mini for a computer, and it is silent. I guarantee that you can't hear anything. I can't hear. Of course, my hearing isn't what it used to be, but. And then fairly recently, I also put in the mix what's called a channel strip, and that feeds into a preamp and then into the computer. And the mic, as for anybody who knows microphones, probably recognizes that as a Neumann TLM 103, which again used to be Bill DeWeese's microphone of choice. So that's where that idea came from. Bought it used on one of those sites. But so not a lot of changes over the years with this room, but it's a great, it's not. I think one of the reasons I designed it the way I did is there are very few distractions in this room. So when I sit down and I want to get into a story, into a read, the only thing I really see that's going on in the room is the screen and the script. And of course, if there's conversation with the client, usually those are just audio only. But yeah, I try to avoid distraction. And I think one of the things that I like about this is, people talk about being retired. I turned 76 this year, and I have never liked the idea of retirement. To me, that was giving up and, throwing in your chips and, okay, then you go off to, to Neverland or whatever. But,
Right.
but yeah, so I never really liked the idea of that. So, but I spend probably anywhere from 0 to 5 or 6 hours in here. I average 2 or 3 hours a day, and
Okay.
I make a good living at it. And it allows my wife and I to do things that that we'd like to do. I mean,
Well, including taking time off and going places.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So,
and now, did your road? I know you put together a kit for recording on the road if you get a gig that can't wait for you to get back home to the studio. Did that work out for you?
Not at all. not in the slightest. Yeah, I tried it a couple of times, but the hotel experience with that kit didn't work. And so,
well, compared to the sound you get out of that room, I can't imagine it would.
That was probably the biggest part of the problem, because a lot of the work I get is repeat business from clients, and everything has to sound like it sounded. It
Right.
can't change a lot, and so yeah, it wasn't practical.
Before we bail here, tell me one of your most interesting, most enjoyable projects that you've done.
Wow, there are a lot of them.
I know it doesn't have to be the most, just one of them that comes to mind.
There are a lot of
fun.
Okay, so probably the best story that I can think of is this was early on. I had the room at the time. It was through voices.com, which really turned out to not be a big success for me, but a producer in New York reached out to me, and he said, I've created this video, and it's a story of a guy and his wife he's in his 50s. I guess she was too. And they honeymooned in Hawaii, and they took pictures, had them developed, and then put the developed pictures in this sort of military ammunition can thing and buried it in some rocks. And then they promised that they would go back to that someday, visit it, find it again, and open it up and look at the pictures. And so he said, I'd like you to be that guy, right? And this 50-year-old guy. Well, I was older than that then, but so unfortunately, when I was hired, I had a severe cold, and I just felt awful that day, just awful. And so I thought, oh, well, I'll just do it anyway. I just got to do it, just push through it. So it was the only job I did that day. So I came down and I got the script and I read it and I thought, who knows, right? And I sent it to him. He loved it. And I used that same recording today as one of my demos. And we talk about what Bill DeWeese's demos got for me, but that sample has gotten me more business than any other sample or any other recording I've ever done.
Can you match that sound with the cold?
Well, I don't know. So I'm trying to remember the script. Yeah, I have to really drop my voice. We were all young once, and with too much time and no money. So I packed my bags and went searching for something we think we lost a long time ago. And it goes on from there.
I love it. Classic Bob Darling. Okay, so to wrap this up, people who are listening to this, now the Crossroads Diner for me is that place where your spirit goes when it's time to evaluate what you're doing. And the waitresses in that diner to me are Faith and Hope and Grace and Lucy. And Lucy is Lucifer, who's going to tempt your ego. And Faith is right now helping you look forward in the present. And Hope is is that vision of what you're looking for, but grace is self-forgiveness for the decisions you made that might not have worked out. So as you sit here talking to my audience and who are probably at a crossroads like that, what kind of counsel? One of the things that you said that I really, really loved is, what are you good at? What do you love? Can you summarize those thoughts for us?
Well, I'd say the same thing I'd say to our daughters, and that is, find something that you love that resonates, and then be fearless. Just go after it, and you'll take it on the chin multiple times probably. Hopefully, you'll have support, but even if you don't, stick with it. And if it's something you love, chances are I think it'll work out.
So you've been on this planet a little while longer than me. And that philosophy seems seems not to have killed you yet. So
not yet. I'm working on it.
So from Salt Lake City, my buddy Bob Darling's counsel for things to consider when you're in the Crossroads Diner. Hopefully you'll come back with us next week and see who's with us and listen to what they have to say. And if you are at a crossroads right now, listen to Bob. Listen to your heart. Listen to your gut. And if you take a risk and it doesn't work out, change direction. For Bob Darling, I'm Steve McCurdy for the Crossroads Diner. We'll see you next week. Come on by and have a bite at the Crossroad Diner, the place your spirit goes when it might be time to change direction. If you know someone who might be at one of those crossroads, send them a link to one of the episodes that you like in the Crossroad Diner. It might be the very thing that they need. And we'll see you next time, right here in the diner.